Greetings and bienvenue, Midnight Crew. Thank you for returning to this broadcast, and welcome to new viewers joining us for the first time. If you like a video, then feel free to subscribe.
About a year ago, my brother told me he picked up traveling spirits. It was just me and him. He was a little drunk, and at first I didn't believe him. I messaged him about 2 months after the fact, and he confirmed with me he was telling the truth. A little backstory. My brother is a choreographer for a cruise line. He travels the world and meets tons of people. Because of that, though, he says he crosses paths with a lot of spirits that are stuck. They died someplace far from home or their family moved away. They use Zach, my brother, to get back home because Zach goes everywhere. They choose me because I can get them where they need to go, were his exact words. He said they've never heard him, but they interact with him and they get impatient. Mostly it's poltergeist stuff, knocking things over, scooting his cell phone. One happened when I was with him at my parents'. A giant conch shell they had in the back of the closet in the room my brother was staying in fell. I watched my mom pack the shell away months before this all happened. It was behind a toolbox. He also said he had a dream the night that one attached. Said a woman was sitting on his bed and looked at him. She smiled and said, "They found you, but don't be scared," and put her hand on his leg. My brother woke up to something tugging said leg and just kinda went shit and rolled over. The point of this post, my brother asked if I ever had any experiences, explained what few I'd had, and he just kinda nodded and said, "This has to run in the family. Why would this pop up with just you and me?" We talked about it, and based on 1 or 2 stories determined it may be something from my dad's side. That side is sneaky and nosy and very concerned with keeping up appearances, so it's possible they know more than they're letting on. I asked my mom if anything happened on her side right after the incident with Zach. She said her family was pretty cut and dry. The next day she said Dad had some stuff to tell me. That conversation never happened. I'm asking Dad tonight what he didn't tell me. I'll bump with the 2 stories I know plus some personal experiences until I talk to my dad. This first story is pretty short, and I'm hearing it third hand, so I don't have a lot of details. I had a great-great-uncle William. William loved playing with the kids, and around the time my grandmother was around 8 or 10. They were all at some family gathering. William was watching the kids and playing with them. It was getting dark. Suddenly, William went stock still, and the kids were all around him asking like, "What's wrong? Are you okay?" etc., etc. William suddenly grabbed a lantern from nearby and started shouting at the kids to get away from him and stay back. The kids backed off, and some of the adults came out of the house to see the commotion. William just told everyone to stay back and started walking off down the road. My grandmother said the last anyone ever saw of William was his lantern swinging as he walked away. This next one may be a little longer, but both parents were there for this one. The most descriptive recount I've gotten is from my mom, though. Dad won't really talk about it. Anyways, back after my brother was born, my late Aunt Lonnie would look after him sometimes when my parents were working. Mom and Dad were there one night picking up Zach, who was asleep. They were in Lonnie's kitchen talking and sitting at her table. Somehow they got into a discussion of religion. In my mom's telling, she was never taught religion as a little girl and didn't go to church, but she likes hearing people talk about it. My dad and Aunt Lonnie, however, were spoon-fed it from the time they were old enough to understand words. As such, both my dad and aunt have had moments of doubt. Apparently, Lonnie began expressing her doubt in great detail and emotion. Mom and Dad both said something just didn't feel right. This feeling of dread and evil came over the room. My dad got up and walked to the doorway of the kitchen and stared down the hall. From where my mom was sitting, she was directly behind my dad and couldn't see anything other than his back in the doorway. He just stood there like a sentry. "Lonnie," my dad said, "I'm not telling you what to believe, and I'm not telling you don't question it, but believe what you know is true." My dad kept repeating that every time Lonnie tried to argue with him. My mom says it was like that for a good 10-15 minutes before Lonnie kinda had a moment, sighed, and said, "You're right." I asked my dad outright one time what was in the hall. He said nothing was. I asked my mom about it a few days afterward, and she said she couldn't see anything around Dad, but the feeling she got, she said she'd never forget. I asked her what she thought it was. She paused for a long time before she finally said, "The devil." That's all I've got for Dad's side. I will dump a few of my own experiences now. If anyone wants to join in, feel free.
I've been meaning to start my own thread about my house, so I'll just give a quick story. My roommate and I work a lot of hours, and sometimes our schedules are polar opposites, which means we sometimes rarely see each other. Most nights I finish work around 12:30 a.m. and usually rush home to take the dog out. One night when I got home, I could see a light on in the window and assumed my roommate was home. I came inside and shouted my arrival and stepped in the backyard with the dog. I came back inside and the light was off. I shouted again at my roommate for trying to scare me and walked to my computer area. I kept hearing what sounded like bare feet pacing back and forth on the wood floor that finally ceased when I heard a door shut. Everything is quiet for about a full game of all random, all mid. And then I hear a door swing open, hitting the wall, and the pacing starts again. Annoyed, I stomp towards the hallway and see nothing. I poke my head into the bedroom with the open door. Nothing. The room has been completely empty since we moved in. I go knock on my roommate's door. Wait for a response. Nothing. So I let myself in. This is when I realize I'm the only one home.
The house I grew up in wasn't really old. It was built in the 70s by a man who had no business building houses. It never had anyone die in it, but someone connected to the house did die. The spirit feels male to me. It's never done anything bad, just kind of makes itself known. A lot of times it interacts with my mom. She said she feels someone sit on the foot of her bed and lay their hand on her leg like they're checking on her. They also go through our cupboards. You'll be sitting in the room adjacent to the kitchen and hear the cupboards open and close. It's a real distinct sound. I had one experience, and I know I've posted it before. I was laying in bed with my back to the wall. My arm was out, hanging over the bed, and I felt something petting the inside of my elbow. It tickled and was really annoying. I'd heard my mom talk about the ghost before, and I'd had moments where I could sense it before. I told the ghost to fuck off because I was trying to sleep. It stopped, and I pulled my arm under the covers so I could get some rest now. Something kicked my bed, hard enough for it to shake and the metal frame to give a clung. I opened my eyes, and right outside my window was this tennis ball-sized orb of light. I laid there for a moment before mumbling an apology. The orb flew up into the overhang on the roof, and I didn't have any more experiences that night. One time I was going to my room in the dark, and across from my room was a half bath. I walked up and saw a shadow on the open door. I thought it was mine until I realized it didn't move with me. By this time I was right next to the bathroom. I moved my head a little bit and realized that the shadow was 3D. I panicked a little, and the shadow kind of leaned in like it was examining me before it pulled back and just kind of melted. I slid into my room and stayed up all night after that one. One that was funny was I was sitting on my parents' porch with my mom and dad. Dad was saying how he didn't believe the house was haunted. Nothing had happened, we're imagining it, yada yada. Suddenly, one of the two chimes my mom had on the porch started moving as if a violent breeze had caught it. We stared at it for a while before it stopped. My dad kind of looked at us wide-eyed and shrugged. "Well, there you go," he said, and never denounced the spirit again. OP here, trying to get more out of my dad. I got one legitimately weird story and one kind of funny one. He keeps straying and made some vague reference to a book he's been working on. I'm writing all this down for you. WTF Pops, stop being cryptic and spill. Okay, back for the night. Dad didn't talk much about any goings-on in the family. Everything he told me was first-hand experience. If there's anything else with anyone on his side of the family, I'll probably never know. His side is really adamant about hiding anything unnatural. Few quick things. Found out I had a great uncle who wrote 2 books, and there's a picture of him for sale on eBay, with an article clipping about how he retired from police force because of moral scruples, something with hookers. My great-grandfather went to prison for stealing a loaf of bread and was a member of the Gaslight Gang, and my great-uncle Jay was nuts. Also, my dad should totally not be alive. He's been run over twice, stabbed twice, almost bled to death in the Everglades, was almost gunned down by a military vessel, almost eaten by a shark, and had his motorcycle go out from under him when he was still holding onto the handlebars. But anyways, let me tell you a story about crazy great Uncle Jay. To understand this story, you have to understand 2 things. You have to understand crazy Uncle Jay and my grandmother. Let's start with her. Gram was mean. Not like a cool stand your ground kind, but like a get the fuck out of here you manipulative type. She was the kind of person who thought she was better than everyone, but would never come out and say it. That would make her self-righteous. No. Gram passed judgment through God and would call down the anger of the heavens on your ass. At least, she believed she had the power to. Jay had been institutionalized for 2 years when this story began. He'd broken up with his wife and just kinda lost it. According to Dad, when Jay came out, he was mean, just mean through and through. One day, Dad came home and my grandmother, his mom, and Jay, her brother, were having it out in the living room. Gram kept telling Jay to get over it and blaming his ex-wife for everything, and pulled her holier-than-thou bullshit. Dad passes through the living room and goes to his room. Says he's in here for a bit when suddenly everything goes cold. He said it went from comfortable to freezing in about 3 seconds, and something was wrong. He goes out to the living room and my grandmother is in the midst of a fit, stock still, speaking in tongues, and Jay is just sitting there smiling at her. When telling the story, Dad paused here for a moment before shaking his head. It wasn't glee on his face, it was just twisted. Dad said, "Anon, I'm not 100% if I believe in God or the devil as far as the Bible tells, but I believe in the Spirit of God." And Grandma called the Spirit of God into that house, or what she thought was the Spirit of God. Whatever it was, she couldn't control it like she thought she could. Dad told me he stood there for a minute and said, "Jay." Jay turned to him, still smiling. As soon as he did, my grandmother told my dad to get out of the house. Dad didn't need to be told twice. He said he went out and stood in the yard. He says he watched that house for an hour. He said it bowed, it swelled like a balloon, it creaked, it bent, it rattled. It did everything but fall in on itself. Suddenly, everything went quiet and still and the cold went away. Jay walked out of the house and closed the door behind him. He walked up to my dad and looked him in the eye. "We need to go fishing sometime," Jay said to my dad. My dad nodded and said, "Yeah, Jay, we do." Jay walked to his car, then stopped and turned around. "You know that wasn't me that did that, right?" he asked my dad. Dad didn't tell me what he responded with or what my grandmother said after that. Jay didn't apologize for what happened, pretty much agreed he was a part of it. He just didn't call whatever it was into that house. Dad didn't tell me what happened after that. Knowing my grandmother, she probably denied anything happened, even though my dad saw it all. A few years later, Jay ended up going full-on nutso and beating my great-grandmother to death. I've got one more story. Not really scary so much as funny, but it scared the piss out of my dad. My dad went to a party one night and was walking home kinda late. He said it was really foggy and he couldn't see more than maybe 3 to 4 feet ahead of him. He decides to cut through a schoolyard to get home quicker, and he doesn't like being out on the road with the fog. Thinks he could get hit or something. So he's cutting through the schoolyard when suddenly, without any warning, there's this white horse about an arm's length away. Dad says he didn't hear the horse and it just stood there, staring at him, not moving. Dad keeps walking and looks back and the horse is gone. It took him a while to get across the schoolyard and the horse kept disappearing and reappearing in the fog. Nothing really came of it, just a weird thing that happened. So, kinda anticlimactic, but that's all I got. Flat out asked Dad if there were any other ties to the unknown he could think of. He sat, lips tight for a while before shaking his head. No. I don't know if I believe him wholeheartedly. The book comment gives me pause, but I think if there are other stories on that side of the family, they're buried under layers of family secrecy, and I'll probably never hear them.
Nice stories, Op. Tell your dad that he better tell you himself if he doesn't want you to try to get that knowledge through other means.
Thanks. The first story stuck with me for a while, just really bizarre. As far as Pop telling me anything, well, I know where he keeps the document he's been working on. But he made me swear not to read it until his death because it's not only family things, it's a lot of personal stuff that he thinks I'll need after he's dead. No idea what it's all about, but I don't go back on my word. I do have a family reunion coming up next August, though. I'm gonna try and see if I can talk to any of my relatives and see if they have any crazy stories. Who knows, though? They're two-faced and secretive.
I used to be a bodyguard for the owner of a pretty famous strip club in South Florida. One day, while leaving one of his smaller clubs, we were attacked by a drunk asshole. Because of the beating that me and my coworkers put on the man, I could no longer work as his bodyguard. We got sued and everything. It was a mess. However, because of my loyalty to him and his company, he hired me to act as security at a halfway house on a farm near the Everglades. He had a cousin who was released from prison and had made arrangements with his probation officer that I would provide security at night from 8 p.m. till 4 a.m. Afterwards, someone else would come and relieve me of my duties. I soon became acquainted with a few of the gentlemen that lived in that house. The most interesting of them all was a former cocaine trafficker turned Santeria priest. He was a very relaxed man who would work down the street in the fields in the morning and read and watch TV at night. About 3 weeks in, I notice a weird presence outside while I'm working around midnight. Something was just strange that night. Something told me to walk to my car and just smoke a cigarette and walk it off. When I got to my car, to my horror, I noticed a rat eating a dead rat. I know rats. Rats see humans, they bolt. This rat kept eating like I wasn't there. Immediately, that unsettling feeling was intensified. 3 seconds later, I heard a loud commotion and saw the priest break down the front door and bolt out, naked. As he ran toward me, I attempted to tackle him but was knocked on my ass. This old man had some inhumane strength. As I got up, I saw to my horror the man pick up the rat and take a bits out of it. Needless to say, I wasn't fucking around with him anymore and tased him and slapped some plastic cuffs on him. The man was arrested for assaulting a worker and another prisoner. I was let go of this job also because I slapped on the plastic cuffs on a man who was clearly mentally ill. What they say. I haven't worked a security job since. What the fuck could have happened to this man? Would it have anything to do with Santeria?
The rodent cannibalism indicates trichinella culture in the local environment. The same behavior occurs in pigs or other farm animals when the parasitic worm becomes endemic to a zone. Cannibalism allows for the parasites to accelerate life cycles. The Santeria guy might have ordered a shrine or relic containing a particularly nasty sample of Trichinella spiralis. Some indigenous Mesoamerican pig farmers have used that microorganism to increase the weight of pork muscle meat. I hypothesize that he ordered something to increase his muscle mass, and then it drove him crazy.
I have some OC. It's a story I've told to people many times but never posted on the net. It happened when I was 10 years old. Several other people saw almost everything I will describe. I should start by telling you about myself. I am a father and a husband. I lead a survival group that is more like a tribe. We all live together even though we are people of means. I am a metal worker. I have been many things in my life and had experiences that would break other people. Gonna leave those out though. I was 10 years old, mid-30s now. Mom always dated a lot of men, tough to deal with. She always leaves them just after I like them. Mom finds a guy named Rick, although he had a lot of names because he was from a strange culture that did that. He was some kind of Mexican native. Things go well with Mom and Rick. Time to meet his family. Happy I like Rick and hope he doesn't have to leave like everyone else. His mom lives in a town called Immokalee, Florida, very different than rural Ohio that I am used to. Excited. At this time, I have no idea how fucked this house is. Rick's mom's. This always sounds so stereotypical. Rick's dad died in the house before this story takes place. The previous owner was killed violently in the house, and Rick had practiced some kind of dark magic in the place as a teen. I will skip to the house, just so you can get a sense of who I am. I was a Cav Scout in the Army, and my group is mostly ex-military, ex-Leo, including my wife. After the longest road trip I had ever done, we get to the house. Rick tells us the house is a little weird, but it's fine. We met Rick's mom, who I will call Mrs. L. Miss L is a somewhat round, not too round, old, very grandmotherly woman. She is very, very religious, was an accomplished fencer in her youth. I immediately like her. She dotes on me and my brother even though we just met her. Adults and us do the typical just got there ritual. Put things in our rooms, etc., etc. Lots of talking and catching up. The first sign of weirdness is that me and my brother are to stay in Miss L's room, even though the house has plenty of room. Let me describe the house. It sits on a dry patch in the middle of a very wet yard. On the outskirts of town, almost the country, but not quite. It's one of those houses that was built onto a trailer, so the trailer sticks out the side of the house and is now part of it. The trailer makes for a long, weird hallway to your left when you enter. There's a free bedroom at the end of the trailer that me and my bro could have easily stayed in. Second day. My brother and I are playing with plastic army men on the living room floor. Doors in the trailer hallway start opening and closing. Scares the shit out of us. Only Rick around. We look at him. We are obviously scared. He kind of ignores it. Tell Mom about it later. She tells us it's the wind. This keeps up the entire time we are there on and off. Sometimes there is definitely an intelligence to it. Opening the doors in an order, first in the hall, then second, etc., etc. This phenomenon is far more obvious than anything I have heard in other ghost stories other than maybe the Bell Witch happenings. This stuff didn't hide, it was just doing what it did. It scared the shit out of us. Mom and Rick fight like crazy while we are there. At one point, Rick gets so mad he rips a bedpost off and throws it through a window. They never fight like that at home. Couple weeks later, Miss L is at church, and Mom and Rick go to the store. Bro and I play Monopoly in the kitchen. The kitchen door and only the kitchen door starts opening and closing. Scared, but joke to Bro that the ghosts are having a party in the kitchen. The door opens faster and slams harder. Keeps slamming until the Monopoly money flies off the table. We are terrified and run outside to wait for the adults to get home. Getting ready to leave for a visit to the Everglades. Everyone is outside. Mom realizes we locked the keys to the car and house in the house. Volunteer to put me through a window to go get them. I realize that the room they want to put me in has a big mirror. It is a bedroom in the trailer. I remembered thinking I wasn't going to look in that mirror. Nothing happened with the mirror. I just distinctly remember not wanting to look in it. Through the window and into the room. Start looking for these keys immediately. Pass the mirror and don't look. I feel like something is bearing down on me though. The feeling gets more and more intense the longer I am in there. Almost panicked, I saw the keys on an end table and grabbed them. Run so fast to the door I smash into it. Just as I get it open, the music box on the table behind me goes off. My brother asked about the bedrooms in the trailer part of the house at one point. This prompted Miss L to tell us not to go into the back room of the trailer. Eating dinner one night. Hear a terrible noise in the trailer like someone moving furniture. Miss L looks somewhat scared but mostly mad. None really says anything about it. My brother keeps looking back that way. Miss L asks my brother if he went back there. He says no in a way where it is obvious he is lying. Miss L doesn't get too mad. She just tells him that he needs to listen to her. My mom starts telling my bro in her shitty, I need attention tone that he needs to listen to people, etc., etc. After dinner, Miss L goes back to the trailer to fix things, I guess. My bro follows her. Later, my bro told me that when he went into the room, before the noise at dinner, that it was just a room with shitty decor and furniture. Had a bed, a dresser, etc., etc., but a man's suit was laid out on the bed like they were getting ready to go to work. Bro says he peeked into the room after dinner behind Miss L and that it was destroyed. Clothes everywhere, dresser drawers pulled out, that kind of thing. Another night, a month or two in, we are staying in the summer. Play with action figures again with bro. Bro and I do this a lot. We often disagree about what figure is dead and what not. The above happens. This leads to us smashing the figures more violently into the other figures to prove a point. And because dumb kids, escalates to wrestling and fists, all pretty normal for us. I am smaller, but older. I almost always win. Remember hitting the floor, and also remember thinking how weird and cold it was. Florida summer. Don't know what this asshole just did for me to hit the ground that hard or how he got me off of him. Now on top of me. I get terrified when I look into his eyes. I don't know how to explain it. They don't look familiar. He had climbed on me in a way that would make a judo coach proud, aka I'm screwed. He starts beating me. Much more severe than we usually fight. Adults have to break it up. I can tell they are freaked out too once they try to get him off me. It's nothing too crazy, but you can tell he is a little harder to wrangle than they thought. Bro doesn't remember feeling anything crazy during all that. He says he does remember thinking, I am gonna kill him. My bro is always really gentle. It's really unlike him to have that kind of escalation. However, he doesn't think it was paranormal. I do. It was all just so weird and out of place. My brother does, however, remember the other weird stuff at the house, and all of us think it's paranormal.
Grew up in the Pork and Beans, aka Liberty Square. No father, prostitute mother, and 3 older brothers. One of my brothers was killed when I was 4 years old over a $5 crap game. When I was about 6 years old, my mom met an old school Cuban dude who got her into Santeria. After that, she stopped tricking and started living life right, but she was still poor and illiterate, so we stayed in the projects. As some of the only Cuban kids there, shit was fucking rough. All the hood kids used to jump us. We stuck with the other Spanish kids, and eventually, as we got a bit older, some of the hood kids started to respect us. I was 8 when my oldest brother started selling crack. This was around 93. He was working with a gang that was in control of the beans at the time. Eventually, he had my other brother and I act as lookouts while they sold drugs on the corners. When I was 10, I was on the lookout when an old dude appeared in the block. He looked like a crackhead, but all he did was stare at us too. My older brother goes to tell our oldest brother about the crackhead. He comes back with a couple other kids from the block, and we all go to confront the dude. We asked him, hey man, what are you doing here? Who do you know? What do you want? He points at my oldest brother and says with a voice that sounds like it's been grinding in a gravel pit, I know him. At that moment, his eyes roll to the back of his head and we all freak out and run. One of the kids runs to the corner store and calls 911 to pick up the dude. By the time the ambulance arrives, the crackhead is gone. We stay on the block until it's around midnight. That's when the big boys would come out to slang. The second the 3 of us arrive at the house, my mom freaks the fuck out, literally falls to the floor, starts crawling backwards, screaming and crying, pointing at my oldest brother. Nothing's wrong with him, but she's saying in Spanish, what is that? What is that? Oh God, please help my son. We try to calm her down, but it's no use. She won't even look at my brother without crying. He decides to stay out and slang and not freak our mom out. My other brother and I go to sleep. I wake up in the middle of the night and see my mom returning to the house. She must have stepped out while we were asleep. We always kept our light on, and I peek through my eyes and see she has a headless crow and some cigars in her hand. Decide to not get involved in this one. Next day, she gives my oldest brother some red beads to wear to ward off the spirits. A few days later, we see the crackhead again. My brother, a fat boy, a 13-year-old kid who weighed like 250 pounds, and I went to confront him. "Hey man, what the fuck was that about yesterday?" He smiles and points at Fat Boy, and once again his eyes roll to the back of his head, and we once again run, but don't call 911 this time. The next day we go out to be on the lookout with Fat Boy, but can't find him. We go to his house, and his mom says he had left early in the morning but never came back from school. We start walking around looking for him, but no luck. A few days later, a detective knocks on my mom's apartment and says he wants to talk to us about Fat Boy. We tell him what we know and heard, but they keep pressing us until my mom says we can't talk to the detective anymore. We go out on the block and hear from the other kids that Fat Boy was found dead in the Glades. What the fuck? We tell my oldest brother about the crackhead and he freaks out. That same day my brother bought his first pistol. He also starts joining my mom in her Santeria meetings. He never takes off the beads my mom gave him, even when he showers. A few months later he gets arrested for weapons possession. Obviously he cannot bring his beads with him. A few days into his stay he gets into a fight that leaves him with a bad concussion. A few months later, once he recovers, he is released out of jail and put on house arrest. Around this time, he starts dating a girl who comes over on a regular basis. Within a few months, he's off house arrest and back on the block again. At this point, I'm like 12. My other brother started selling drugs too, so I started acting as his lookout. One day, we hear a huge commotion and hear some gunfire. We ran to our apartment and see my brother there with his girl. I ask him what happened, and he says they saw the crackhead again and tried to jump him, but he pointed at my brother and ripped off his beads from his wrist. One of the guys from the block tried to shoot the crackhead, but he said the bullets went through him like a ghost. After a few hours, when things cool down, my brother and I go back outside to make some cash. We arrive back home a few hours later and there are cops everywhere. Ambulance too. Shit, wait, why is my mom outside hysterical? Oh shit. Someone got a shotgun and blasted my brother and his girlfriend through their bedroom window. Cops obviously said it was drug and gang related. Take us to the station. And they ask us a bunch of questions about his friends and all that. No one knows shit, and my mom was hysterical and kept going on and on about the devil. We never saw the crackhead again. A few months after that, my mother took her own life. My older brother and I got put into foster care and were separated. We got put with nice families and ended up not going to prison or with a bullet stuck in our heads. A few months ago, we were driving through Miami, reliving some of our fond memories. We decided to get a few drinks at Wynwood. As we park our car in one of the paid lots off North Miami Avenue across from Wood Tavern, who do we see? The crackhead. We stop in our tracks and just stare at him. He wasn't too far from Wood Tavern, and he starts staring at a group of girls that are walking by. And he points at them, then stares at us, smiles, then winks.
I hope that you enjoyed tonight's broadcast. If you enjoyed tonight's story, then please subscribe to the channel, as more Greentext will appear daily. A new broadcast will appear when the clock strikes midnight Central Time.